This is Hartford Whaler Nation. Welcome to Whaler Nation TV. We're in for an exciting evening tonight with Peter Hindle, and tonight our special guest is Greg Gilmartin, the man with the famous lion. Here are your Hartford Whalers, ladies and gentlemen. Here are your Hartford Whalers. And Greg, thank you so much for coming to visit us from Mystic.
Thank you for inviting me. You know, we've talked about this for a little bit, and I'm glad I'm finally here, and I look forward to a nice little conversation.
Well, it's like walking down memory lane. Pete and I bring up the memories. You can fill in the blanks. You have some great off-camera. You had some great things, so we're going to get you going.
Just don't ask me dates. I can hardly remember what happened because that was an awful long time ago. I had a totally different look, but I still remember a lot what happened there.
That's great. Now, when did your sports career start? Because we had a little conversation about that.
Yeah, well, you know, my dad was a sports fanatic, and that got me started. I grew up in New York and so on. And when I was in college, 65 actually, went to work for a college radio station, flunked out of college, went into the Air Force, ended up on a small unit, and they needed a guy to spin records and report sports scores. In Turkey, this was.
Oh, wow.
So I started reading scores off the wire, and that was kind of a neat thing. I got out of the Air Force and just started pursuing it back to college and got a job in the local station, and then the ball just kept rolling, and suddenly end up in Hartford.
That's great. Imagine that. Come to Hartford. And
Arnold Dean called me one night, and you know, I applied for a job, and they were looking for someone. And I was pleased to get to work for Arnold Dean for about 5 years, and worked with Bob Steele on WTIC, and that was excellent. And that all kind of led to one thing after another, and the Whalers ended up in the middle as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, how many years did you work for the Whalers? What was this?
Well, I started when they went in the NHL, so that was 78, 79, and we went right up through 97 to the end with about, I guess, 3 years I missed.
Okay.
I went out to Arizona for chasing a dream, which turned out to be much more than I anticipated. So.
So your hobby these days are sailing.
Yeah, I'm a big sailboat racer, and I manage sailboat races down in the Mystic area. I'm a Mystic River mudhead, and we have a great little group, about 350 guys, and maybe 70 boats, and we have a variety of different races. So that's one of the hobbies that I have right now, as well as trying to keep a business going.
So. And what's the business? What do you do?
I'm a movie producer, video producer. We have some shows that run in the hotels down in the Mystic area and in Newport.
Oh, excellent.
So you walk into your hotel room, turn on the TV, and our program is there, which kind of gives you a hint of what's going on.
Oh, that's
Things
pretty
like
cool.
that.
That's great.
Yeah, plus we do commercials and anything that moves and we can capture.
Now, is that something you always liked to do with the film?
Yeah, I was still photographer for many years and got into radio. And then after I worked at Enterprise Radio, you might remember that. It was a first effort in the early, it was 1980, to go national with a sports talk arrangement.
Okay.
So I was hired there right from TIC.
Oh, okay.
And it lasted 8 months. And that was it. Suddenly I was out of a job. And it was like, what am I going to do? So I got a job at Channel 3 and then Channel 30, and that got me back into doing the video. And then I went independent, and I've been pretty much on my own since then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's now, when you sat in that box so close to the ice, do you remember? I mean, if you can pick out, you're there for all the games. I mean, you get the best seat in the house.
Pretty much, yeah.
What do you remember as one of your, if there is a favorite scene at the Civic Center?
An awful lot of scenes. I mean, I remember the thing that always was amazing is when the Whale was playing well and when they were doing things dramatic, the building was electric. It was dynamic in the sense that there was a tremendous amount of noise and the building would shake. And everybody was excited by something that had happened. Blaine Stoughton scoring late against the New York Rangers, I remember, on a pass from Francis. And I remember Cindy Stoughton going through the concourse, and she was like whooping it up with the fans. And you know, this was like at the time. You know, remember she was a Playboy model at one time.
Yeah.
And
Oh.
she was kind of like. Everybody like, oh, that's Cindy Stoughton, and here she was cheering just like everybody else, and the crowd was crazy because we had beat the Rangers.
Yep,
That was a
absolutely.
very important thing. Got to keep beating the Rangers. Certainly going all the way to the end. Deneen's goal
Oh,
in
my
the
God.
last year, the last game. Kevin throwing his stick up into those stands to a friend of mine who happened to sit behind us, and you know she was delighted to get it, and she'd been there for many, many years.
Yeah.
I think it was Warren Miller, a name from the past. Got into a fight with a fellow from Quebec, I believe. And this is before they had put the separating sections into the penalty boxes. It used to be just one long box. So I'm sitting there, and my buddy Jimmy McDonald is the penalty timekeeper. Tony's the timekeeper. And all of a sudden, these two guys are using us as punching bags. They're going over us to fight it out.
Wow.
We end up on the ice. They're fighting in the penalty box. After that, they put up separators.
That's a good
Oh,
idea.
yeah.
Plus a few thousand goals and a few thousand disappointments.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
it was all
absolutely.
there.
I mean, it's kind of like golf. You know, you
Yeah.
go out there and you get one shot, and it calls you back for more. The
Right.
Whalers, they would pull at your heartstrings, have just a phenomenal game, and you're like, yes, this might be the year. And then,
Yeah, something
they
would
let you
happen.
down with,
Right.
with injuries or whatever might
Right,
happen.
right,
And, you know,
right.
or, you know, Mike Liut coming up, with unbelievable saves, Steve Weeks,
Right.
that brought us all the way to, Montreal in that series.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a hard game.
It is.
And they played hard most of the time. But unfortunately, they're also playing against teams that were playing really hard.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and, I thought for a while, in the mid-'80s and early 90s, I thought, they had the potential to
Oh, yeah.
at least challenge.
Right, right.
And we got close a few times, but
That 86,
Never could pull the
87
trigger.
season was just,
Yeah.
that was just, I mean, you look at the guys up on the board behind us,
Right.
you have Tippett, Gavin, Evison, and, Wallace, Merzen,
Right.
Robertson, who could forget Torrey?
Right.
Torrey was one of the great characters of all time. I mean, just a tough guy. And you knew if you're going to tangle with him, it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
You might hurt him too, but
Yeah.
he's going to be right in there. So,
Right, right. He's not afraid.
Not afraid.
No,
No,
not afraid at all. As a matter of
And
fact,
it didn't matter whether
Yeah.
he was on the ice or in a bar or someplace else.
yeah.
Torrey was a tough guy.
that's
Liked
what
him a lot.
Emil Francis, the cat, said about him. He said he's got more guts than a slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
And that was true,
Right. Yeah.
He's definitely one of those guys. Are the players, did you get to know them pretty well, or was there anybody that you developed a friendship with that you'd like to talk about?
I really can't say I had a friendship with them. I mean, there were a lot of guys who were really friendly. They would recognize you or you'd see them. Certainly Ronnie, Kevin, and Alfie. I can't say we got to know each other, but we knew each other.
Right.
And, we'd say hello, we'd pass a few words and so on. The year that the Wolfpack retired their numbers, I thought that was very special.
Right.
I know for me, being able to MC that event.
Oh, yeah.
And those
nice.
three guys wore the team in terms of the very best
Yes.
that the team had to offer.
Right.
Joel Quenville, it was tough for me. I covered the Boston Bruins for several years when I was working in Worcester before I came here. And deciding who to root for, because I have to tell you, I haven't paid much attention to hockey for many years. But then when the Bruins came back against Toronto, suddenly I remembered how exciting the game could be.
Right, right.
And I started rooting for the Bruins. Then Chicago got in. And I said, wait a minute. Joel,
Yeah.
one of the best, most decent human beings ever.
Absolutely.
And a full-on professional and a great coach, obviously.
Yes.
And good for him.
Yes.
So,
And we
yeah,
must say,
absolutely.
the core of people, and we've discussed this before on the show, Deneen, Francis, Samuelson, Joel, gentlemen, all the time. When they're out in public, when they're, even behind the scenes, I talked to Kevin many times, just always a gentleman, always took the time.
Right.
And that's what, and again, you were there when they had was it the Whalers Wives Carnival or the Whalers Wives?
Right.
When they had the casino nights. And, all those people went. It was a great turnout. It was great for the charities, and that's what Hartford was about back then, and it still is. The Wolfpack, the Connecticut Whale, still take care of the charities. But back then it was special. We had NHLers that really took the time to be with the community.
right, they really did. And you would see them in the community. I know a lot of them lived in the Avon area.
Yep.
Right.
And I used to hang out there a lot. And you'd see them around just in town or, out celebrating a night where there wasn't a game or something.
Sure.
And I thought it was also interesting that I remember Greg Millen taking on Ron Francis when Ronnie first came here, and kind of like, Ronnie stayed in their house, and kind of like keeping an eye on the young guy who turned out to be, one of the best players ever to play the game.
Yeah, literally.
So
it's amazing.
It was always a good feeling, and the bad guys, because there were some, they never lasted long.
No.
And they were gone.
Yeah.
And they still, to this day, the ones that snubbed their nose to Hartford, some of the bigger profile players that went on to other teams and win Stanley Cups and all that, we don't need them. That wasn't part
Who
of...
are you talking about exactly?
It's one of those things where it took away what good our players did in our community. You have these guys that talk smack about Hartford. It's like, no, this is our turf. Right. And you don't do that. We took pride in, the Whalers lost, but they got a parade and thousands of people showed up because we didn't make it. Right. And that's what you have to remember. Our people supported our team. And that's what, I bring it back all the time, that you have to do this. You have to support the Hartford Whalers, and you have to get them back in here to re-energize Hartford as one of the things that can re-energize Hartford. After the series, you were there, I was there. And you remember Gaetano's was in the mall. And people laughed at the mall. The mall was fun. You had Gaetano's, you had the tobacco shop downtown, or downstairs with the big Indian outside. Yeah. And you had, what was the other place you were talking about? Margaritaville?
You had Margaritas was there, Chuck's. Yep,
Chuck's
sure.
Steakhouse.
Chuck's, hang out
Chuck's,
there.
you had lines after the game just to get into Chuck's.
That's true.
And it re-energized that whole nightlife feeling. You had Frank's Restaurant across the street.
Right.
Where Frank Sinatra went after he played the Civic Center. I only know that because I drove the limousine.
Sinatra played for the Whalers?
No, played at the Civic Center.
Okay.
It might have helped us.
I missed that. That was the year I was gone.
It's bad 3 years.
That would have been something.
But it just energized the whole Civic Center. After you got out of the game, people were downtown for a while.
There was energy, and we have a funny group. We call ourselves the Whalers Drinking Club, and as some of the press aides and the off-ice officials, we gather for a beer or two after the game and just rehash it all and just hang out. And like you say, there was always a crowd. There was always a gathering, people in the hallway and so on. And there was a sense of energy that's there. That was there in the town, and I'll be honest, I don't know if it's still there. I haven't been up here very often. We go to some of the games, but I don't get the same sense.
No, it folds up after 5, unfortunately.
Right.
And even with a hockey game, there's just not that whole feeling.
Yeah.
There are still, correct me if I'm wrong, there's still people that aren't ready to jump into that hockey thing right now.
Yeah,
they're still angry that our Whalers aren't here. And I think they need to step out and they have to support hockey.
Right. There's still a large group of Whaler fans who only want to deal with the NHL, and I understand that they're just not into the AHL. You can feel it's a drop in the quality. And the attendance tells you right there. It's about half to 1/3 of what the Whalers used to get. And you remember some days the Whalers didn't draw that well because the team had sold Francis and sold everybody, and there were some dark years and stuff. But
the Great Conspiracy, you mean, right?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
the coach going to the thing, but the owner
It's like a shell game.
It is. It's all about hey, somebody didn't want to maybe have a long-term deal with Francis, or maybe it was a money issue, or there's a lot of reasons. But it unfortunately it was one of those things that kind of sent the franchise off kilter for a little while. So,
right.
But besides that, with all the experience that you've had, you must have heard some interesting penalty box conversations.
Well, there were some guys who would get in there and really weren't happy at all. So you could learn some curse words in French or Czechoslovakian, Russian sometimes, and certainly in English. But you play the game hard, and it hurts sometimes. You get smashed into the boards, or you get checked, or whatever, and you get hit by the puck. And these guys are, they get into the box and they're tired. They've been running and exerting themselves. So if they're in there and they don't believe they should be in there, they're going to be a little bit on the angry side.
Right.
I'll tell you a guy who complained an awful lot, and he's one of the greatest players of all time. But Wayne Gretzky was not afraid to whine. And we would give him a hard time, to ourselves, of course.
Yes.
He was the great one. But he would whine. He was of the expectation that you cannot touch me. And if you do, you should get a penalty automatically.
Right.
We used to hate that.
Kind of like Sid the Kid now. Crosby.
There's yeah, I know. I always felt that way.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I wasn't the only person who said it. Yeah, I always felt that way, that it was, and you couldn't because, well, the league didn't want anything to happen to Gretzky. You know? But yeah, there was always let's just say he always had a little bit of an entourage on every team he was on. Somebody was always protecting him, and sometimes those guys who ended up on the Whalers. Remember Dave Semenko?
Semenko?
Yeah. He called him
you don't want to mess with
Cementhead. One of my friends called him Cementhead. He goes, yeah, that's what we called him, because he was out there and he'd go without that helmet, and he must have definitely had a head of rock to get out there and drop him. There was a fight on YouTube the other day I watched. It was unbelievable. And
right.
He dragged this guy all over the ice. I'm like, holy crap.
With just like, what would you say? I mean, it's always a sad story. But what was that day that you were going to work, and it was the last Whaler game? What was the preparation like that? Did you know it was going to be? Was it going to be tough for you, or were you just concerned with it being tough for the fans, or what was your thoughts going into that final game?
Well, there was a certain sense of helplessness. You can't do anything about it.
Right.
But one of the things about being a PA announcer is that you have a certain job, you have to do a task, you're working for the team, and you have to inform the audience. And you're not supposed to be rooting one way or the other, theoretically.
Right.
Now, clearly, if you listen to me whenever the Whalers would score a goal, there'd be a little more energy.
Absolutely.
And you would, emphasize a name, and especially if it was a nice name like Zarley, Zalapsky, or something like that, which was Mike Zook, always great. But that day when I went in, I was trying to think, what can I do? Because I'm not happy about this. So you had it in your introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, here are your Hartford Whalers. I introduced them that night. Ladies and gentlemen, here are the Hartford Whalers. And that was a very small little thing. A couple of people picked up on it. It was very personal to me because they weren't ours anymore.
No.
And bye-bye. They had that one game, and that was it. So that was tough. That was a hard night to leave.
It was
the stadium.
Yeah, good story though. It was
I was driving home from work. I was a mess. I was like, this is horrible. It's like a bad dream. I was like, this is horrible. And I talk to people and they love Carolina. It's like, that's nice.
I know several people, and again, it's funny. You think you're the only nutty Whaler fan out there, but there's a lot of us. I did not go to the final game. I didn't want to deal with it, and I had it on tape, and I didn't watch it for 10 years. I finally watched the final game. And I was telling people about it, and they're going, oh, yeah, I haven't watched it either. I can't bring it up. And there's so many people that haven't even watched the final game.
No, because of the closure.
Yeah, I know.
That's the most important part.
We won the game.
Yeah, that's right.
And the favorite Whaler scored the goal.
Yeah.
Go to the heart of danger. There you will find safety. Because once you get an understanding and a grip on it, then you either move on or you react and adjust.
Right. That's good advice. Yeah, excellent advice.
That's why we're doing this show.
Yeah, that's why we're doing this show. Yeah. We're going right into the heart of danger.
We're going into the heart, and we're bringing them back.
That's right,
That's what it's coming
I think it's I'll be honest with you, I haven't been a believer because I've been out of the game for a long time. Been out of the game longer than I was in the game when it came to with the Whalers. But I do understand that the desire to bring them back, and I realize that if I suddenly had, win the lotto, I used to say this to a buddy of mine, hey, if I won the lotto, Mike, that's about $70 million. We could buy the Whalers. And he goes, why would you want to do that? It'd be great fun.
Yeah.
Of course, now, unfortunately, you need $200 million.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't like that.
Yeah, exactly. But let me tell you something. If you were to bring back the Whalers, or any of us to bring back the Whalers, we would be a hit.
Oh, yeah.
I know it would work.
The fans want it, no question about it.
It's there.
Good hockey. Hockey's a great sport. And this area believes in hockey.
Yeah.
They just need something to root for.
You just need the local support of your government.
Right.
That's a big part of it.
State and the local government, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, the more they sit there and wait, it's only getting worse.
Yeah.
I mean, the businesses aren't doing as well.
Yep.
The fans at the games are not as much as they'd like to be. And, we have to make something happen. We, the people here. And that's what it comes down to.
Right. But you won't believe how many people will watch this show and have questions that'll ask us and all kinds of things.
Well, I sure hope they do respond.
It's great.
And throw my email up, I hope, so that
absolutely.
Send me I'd love to get back and
sure.
Talk to
they would love to ask you questions. Absolutely.
And the other thing is, you sit there and you watch. What was I just going to say? I had a great thing going. It was about that, how the people are dying to get out there and want to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem.
I just want to tell one little story, which
sure.
I try to encapsulate, I think, what people love about the game. I haven't saved much, but I have a Boston Bruins hat that I have, which was thrown on the ice, and it's signed by Terry O'Reilly.
Yeah.
And some Boston fan threw it on the ice during a Hartford-Boston game.
Yeah.
But also signed is Pat Verbeek, because he had scored a hat trick in that game, and that hat went out on the ice during the hat trick. Even a Boston fan throwing the hat out.
Yeah,
I appreciate
exactly.
that.
You know, and it was one of the hundreds of hats that came down. I grabbed that hat, and
Or was it the Hartford fan that took it off the Bruins fan?
Yeah, yeah.
and threw
well,
it
we
on
can
the
hope
ice?
that too, right?
Yeah. Well,
That's
Greg,
all good.
thank you so
That's a good
much for
feeling.
coming here.
Yeah, thank you very
We're
much.
gonna give me your picture there. We got to show this. This is a little bit of
Oh
nostalgia.
God, yeah, that's
And
30 years ago,
This
folks.
is here is Greg with his WTIC promotions. Rick Burleson from the Red Sox, John Ziegler, and Howard Baldwin. And we're going to phase out this part of Whaler Nation TV so we can thank Greg, and we'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to Whaler Nation TV. We appreciate Greg coming on. That was a nice trip down memory lane. And now we have Sean Irwin joining us, our co-host from many of our Whaler talk show days.
Right.
Before I was replaced.
Writer, content creator.
Replaced by Peter. No, we went to the two-man. We had budget cuts here.
Yeah.
We had
Now
to
I'm
go-
just a guest. Now I'm
no, the man behind the camera. On the stool.
The guy with the puppet string.
yeah, now,
right.
now
Yeah.
I work behind the scenes. So.
So, Sean, the first bunch of shows that we did.
Yes, that was. I think it was a good time, though, all of it, because I think it was. We were all scared. We didn't know what the hell we were doing, and we didn't know what to exactly expect from the show and what to do with the show. And we're like 40 shows in,
Yeah.
and
2 years.
2 years in, and I could have never thought of it. It's just insane, and how. The support we've gotten from the community, the support we've gotten from guests, people just to know the show and hear about it in Hartford and everywhere, in Alaska. We were talking about that just off the camera. We get fan mail from Alaska, from New York.
Upstate New York.
All
People
all
who
across
want
the
to buy
country.
stock in the Hartford Whalers.
Exactly, yeah.
We have to figure out how to buy a team. And we're going to sell stock. We
I
have
don't think
people,
you
you got the email.
Yeah.
You got the email from the guy in Alaska.
Yeah,
there you
yeah.
go.
Just like Howard said with the Green Bay of hockey, he wants
Yeah.
to make it'd be nice if Hartford was the Green Bay of hockey,
Right,
and,
right.
and the team was publicly owned, and that way the team couldn't move.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless it's like a shareholder.
There's some issues that the NHL won't allow that, but I mean, I think at this point the
And I-
NHL is looking for solutions to problems.
I think the show, that's really, I think, what it has done is created a conversation that people didn't want to have. It's kind of like the birds and the bees type of thing. You know it's there, you don't want to talk about it. This is the situation, the whale in the room.
The pink elephant.
Yeah, it's pink whale kind of. So I think we started up a conversation, or we didn't, but we assisted in a citywide conversation, a statewide conversation on what to do with Hartford. And I think the answer came with maybe it's back to the NHL. And, they say when you don't know what to do, you get back to your basics. You go back in. And our basics is hockey, is a Hartford hockey team.
Yep.
And I think people are starting to realize that is really what needs to be done.
On the NHL level.
On an
It has to
NHL
be
level.
NHL where we get
Yeah.
the revenue for the city on a much bigger
Yeah.
scale. They've had the gymnastics in, they've had
Right.
the concerts in. They've proven that when you have 16,000 people downtown, it generates the revenue
And
that
I
Hartford
think
needs to survive.
you guys talked about this a little bit with Greg, how when you're in that when you take that trip down memory lane, it reignites thoughts and memories, and it makes you happy when the building shook when someone would score a goal, that kind of stuff. I never experienced that. I've maybe gotten 5,000. I think the biggest crowd I've ever seen at a Wolfpack game, not even actually probably the Wolfpack game when they retired the numbers.
Yep.
That was almost full, that stadium,
Right.
the arena. And
Well,
I
the
don't
rebranding
think,
you went, didn't you?
yeah, I went to
That was
rebranding,
that was bigger than the numbers.
and that was still
That was 13,000.
that was it was crazy, and that's the most electric I've ever felt the arena.
Right,
And,
which is amazing because that's one of the points I bring up is that people of a certain age they never really saw the NHL days.
Right.
And I think that's something NHL and hockey, I think, in sports is something you pass on to a generation, and generation it's a father-son bonding, that type of thing.
Yep.
And when you don't have that, I think that takes it away from the city.
Disconnect.
It's a huge disconnect. And or if they are gonna have that, they're gonna go to Boston, they're gonna go to New York, and they're not gonna want to go to a Connecticut Whale or a Wolfpack, whatever it would be. They want to see real-time hockey. I'm not saying that's not real-time hockey.
We want NHL level.
NHL
It's
level.
a certain level of,
Yeah.
of expectations
Yeah.
of the quality of the product.
Yeah, and people expect more from the team.
Right,
With the AHL, I think people just kind of like, it's AHL. You know, we're not expecting anything great.
And they're
Yeah.
not the
Popular
same
attitude.
players, you know, every week because they're more apt to be called up,
Right.
or you know, or traded or whatever. You know, we have to sit there and you know, when we look at all the shows we've done, you know, we sit there and we have had everyone from Howard Baldwin, Dennis House, David Panagor,
The creators of the
logo,
Yeah.
Peter Good and Jack Lardis.
Right.
You know, we've really embraced the whole Whaler heritage. You know, and Dennis House is a passionate Whaler fan, and it's been a lot of fun to talk to him when he was on the show. Jack Lardis and Peter Good, they created our logo,
Right.
and you know, and Greg Gilmartin tonight. You know, ladies and gentlemen, here are our Hartford Whalers. That is just amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
We're gonna shoot to a clip to our little segue out of Whaler Nation TV tonight. It's a special one. We appreciate everything Sean's done, and we've had a great time as Sean as our co-host.
Right.
He's off to college, and he'll be back to see us on his breaks
On
and
special
contributing
assignment.
off camera,
Yeah.
probably on whether it's the Facebook site or the Twitter account and so on.
Right.
So take a look at this ending, and remember, one nation under green. We'll catch you next time on Whaler Nation TV.